Hey guys, welcome back to our channel, and we've got a good one for you today. We were just talking about this last night. It came up, I don't remember how. I think it was when we were tired after cleaning up the kitchen and putting the kids to bed.
Yeah. We were having our little ginger tea and I don't know how we came upon the topic, but we just talk and talk when we're tired.
Pretty much.
And I was like, hey, this actually is a pretty relevant topic. I feel like a lot of people think about this
I didn't tell them the topic yet.
I know, but I'm saying this is a topic that I feel like a lot of people should reflect about, or, you know.
But before they change this video, tell them what the topic is.
How did our children change who we are?
And we started in this topic because I was telling Z how I used to have this business partner, and I didn't listen to a lot of the stuff that he said, but he said one thing to me that I thought was profound, and for some reason, like when I think of him, it's the thing that I always think of. And he said, have kids, it's very important. He was a lot older than me, so he was giving me like life lessons, and he said, have kids, it's very important. He didn't say why it was important, he doesn't say what it does, he just said, have kids, it's very important.
And you didn't realize the importance of that?
I didn't realize how profound that statement was
until later in life.
Right.
Okay.
And so that's what we were talking about last night, is how kids change us, how kids change you. I am not the person that I was before I had kids. I remember telling Z about this when my first child was born with my former wife. I remember we were at the hospital. And at the hospital, the nurses do everything. They change the baby, make sure the baby's eating.
Hold on, I don't mean to interrupt you. Talk about where you were in life, like what stage of life you were in. Okay. Once you found out that you were going to have, or you decided to have, a little one. And for those of you that don't know, well, you kind of said it, you had children, right? My bonus babies were from a previous marriage, right? Correct. Okay.
And so where I was before I met the older kid's mom, my former wife, I was pretty content not having kids. It had never occurred to me that having kids was a thing that would be important to me in my life. I was working. I owned a house and some rental houses, and I was just doing my stuff as a single childless guy, and it never occurred to me that I needed to have kids. When my business partner said that kids are a very important thing, I just kind of blew it off. He's just a crazy old person, and I didn't think twice about it. And then I met the older kid's mom, and she was a very nice lady, and she was really interested in having kids. And so I thought about it, and I thought, well, I'm not adverse to having kids. It's not something that I think is vital for me in my life to do the things that I want to do. But, I'm not adverse to having kids. You're a really nice person, so yeah, let's do it. And I remember that, we were able to conceive. Everything was just fine with pregnancy, and then we get all the way to delivering the baby, and the baby comes, and I remember in the hospital, the nurses do everything for you. They take the baby away, they change the diapers, they do all the stuff, and they just let you like spend time with the baby off and on. And then I remember when they discharged us, I remember putting the baby in the car, and that was when it hit me that, oh my God, we're taking care of this baby. Like, there's no responsible adults around anymore to do all these things and let us know that we're not killing the baby. Like, we're going to take this baby home and we're going to take care of it. And on that note, we're going to order a Starbucks and pick it up in just a second. Okay, we're back. So anyway, so they gave us the baby, they shoved us out the hospital, and I'm like, hey, why aren't you guys coming with us? Like, what are we going to do to take care of this baby? And you know how it is with your first kid. Well, if you have kids, you do know how it is with your first kid, where it's like drinking from a fire hose at the beginning, and you know you get no sleep, and you just go into survival mode, and just try to feed the baby, keep it alive, and then all of a sudden, you know, all of your priorities change instantly. Like, you know, whereas I was primarily self-concerned, or concerned about myself and concerned about my partner, and now all of a sudden my primary focus is taking care of this little baby that can't take care of itself. Or you're supposed to become selfless. I mean, that's what you're supposed to do. And so yeah, to me, it was such a big paradigm shift. And I remember thinking like a month or so in, after we've had our first baby, I remember thinking, when do things go back to normal?
Never.
That was a thought I thought, like, okay, so like he's sleeping a little bit more during the night, you know, like when do things go back to normal? And I didn't realize that things never go back to normal. And you know,
new normal.
Yeah. And I know that, at least for me, that I never, as a person without kids, conceived of the change, or would have been able to conceive of the change that would occur within me as a result of having kids. So that's my thought about it. And now you came into having kids a little bit differently.
Correct. So when I met Charles, I was in my early 30s. I was in residency. It's good. I was in my early 30s.
Toasted almond cold brew.
And my bonus babies were 2 and 3 at the time. And if you don't know, when I met Charles, his previous wife, she passed away, unfortunately. You can look at our previous videos in regards to that. And so I went from being, what I will say, selfish, completely worried about myself, you know, on the weekends, just doing my own thing, sleeping in, to now being concerned, you know, about 2 little ones. Not only getting to know Charles, but I also had to get to know, you know, my little kiddos, my little bonus babies.
They were 3 and 2 when we met.
Correct. And that was a transition in itself. And keep in mind, when I met Charles, I was going back and forth from residency to where Charles lived, or where I live now, and that was about an hour and a half. I would go on the weekends. So I was trying to form a relationship with the kiddos and with Charles, but it was, I think, a little bit more difficult just due to distance, and I wasn't there all the time. And I think I had a lot of self-doubt, right? I think I would beat myself up when, you know, one of the children wouldn't hold my hands or would cry if I picked them up. It was a lot of that transition. It was a lot of that, I think, for me initially. And you have to keep in mind, I think it's very different compared to when you birth and you nurture a child and the child is familiar with you, compared to coming in as a new maternal figure, trying to figure out your place, and when the kiddos are not really familiar with you. So the first 2-3 years or so, I think, was a lot of me trying to figure out my role, and I think the kiddos kind of figuring out the role that I play in their lives.
But you got to give yourself some credit too, because you were stepping into a situation where their mom had passed away. We were all living in the house where she had lived, and where people knew our family with her as part of our family. The kids are white kids. So you're stepping in, being a bonus mom to 2 white kids in a not entirely comfortable situation to begin with.
Yeah, it was a lot, and that's how I knew that I loved Charles. And so the kiddos were a part of them, right? And I loved them too. right? It was just the situation itself was, I think, for anybody uncomfortable, you know? And so the first few years, it was just a lot of me building confidence, and then of course them taking the time to get to know me. And at 2 and 3, you know, it takes time.
Yeah.
And so once I got that confidence in, I think it became a lot smoother, especially once I moved into the household.
Yeah.
And then I had another experience right into motherhood, because then we had our youngest child, who was now 2, baby man, right?
Who's in most of our videos.
Correct.
Not today.
And it took us a while to actually conceive him. It took us about, what, almost 2 years, I think, to conceive him.
Was it 2 years we were trying? I felt like a year.
It was like 1.5 years or so. And that is just a different experience, right? Being pregnant, you know, and then nurturing a child from once they're out of your womb and watching them grow, right? And you love them just as I love my bonus babies, but it's a different experience to see how you can help, what's the word? Nurture them, kind of mold them. It's just been a different experience in that regards.
Yeah.
And I think that newborn phase, especially that first year of life, not just a newborn phase, that was also trying, right? You know, postpartum recovery. And then I think it's a little bit heavier for the mom, right? Because, you know, you're trying to breastfeed, or, you know, naturally the young kiddos are drawn to you. So there was a lot more of me having to be selfless, so to speak, right? You know, I wasn't sleeping. It's just constant baby, baby, baby. And so that was, I think, a huge adjustment for me. With our older kiddos, you know, they were a little bit more independent, meaning they weren't waking up throughout the night. You know, they're not so dependent on me. You know, they lean on you a lot. And so to have a young little one that's constantly crying and, you know, you got to wake up at nighttime, it tried my nerves, right? And especially now in this phase of life, he's 2, and so he's learning his boundaries. He is really good with his no, right? No, and no, right? That's his thing now, right? And so if you pull down the wrong water cup, oh, he is falling down. He is falling out, right? Or if you tell him it's dinner time, you need to sit in your high chair, oh, he is having a fit. So learning patience, right? How to continue to love and be soft and be gentle and have patience, right? I feel like I'm constantly being myself shaped by our little ones. And even the older kiddos, they're starting to get into this point of their lives where they want independence, or a little girl, you know, she wants her makeup, or she's learning how to, you know, I don't want to say manipulate, but how would you say, be strategic and asking or inquiring about things.
It's a nicer way of saying manipulate.
Yeah, it's not manipulate. So it's been a constant, and for any of you that are parents, you know, it's a constant change that we go through. What do you think?
I agree. I'm always changing. I love getting to grow with the children.
Question for you. I know that you had our 2 older ones. Was there anything different for the last kiddo with me?
Yeah, the last kiddo hasn't been so exhausting to me. I feel like with the first 2 kids, I was anxious a little bit, and with baby man, I just love it. Like I get disrupted sleep, you know, things go awry from time to time, but in general, like I eat up baby man, like just his little emotions, watching him grow, watching him learn his world. It's so amazing to me. So I'm relaxed, and I'm able to enjoy the ride or the journey with baby number 3. I think more than I was with babies 1 and 2, just because of how I've changed. Okay, so we're going on and on. Z, I've got a question for you.
Yes.
So I actually have 2 questions.
Okay.
Number 1, what would you say is the single most important thing that you've learned as a parent? Or just pick an important thing, because I don't want to make it. I don't want to make it like, oh, you have to figure out the best one. Tell me something something you've learned as a parent.
I think you hear about the word love, right? And we think, we reach our 20s. I thought in my 30s, I know what love is. But I feel as if with children, I learned that love is truly a selfless act. Especially with our older two kiddos. I was saying how when I first met them, it was a lot of self-doubt and whether I'm good enough, and I try to give them a hug or hold a hand, and they didn't want to hold my hand, and that can blow your ego, right?
Yeah.
And it really is ego. But despite all of that, you have to learn that you still have to, you can't be, love is, it's a giving, right?
You've got to persevere. You got to persevere.
You got to persevere,
right?
And you can't have the expectation that you're always going to receive.
Right.
If that makes sense. And
Right.
I think for a lot of us, or at least for me, if I give you a hug, you're going to squeeze back, right? Or if I hold your hand, you're going to try to hold my hand back. With children, I think it's a true test of love, and to put love into action, which is a selfless action.
Right.
And so I had to learn, hey, may not want to hold my hand, but that's okay. I give you your space.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're ready, you'll grab my hand. When you're ready to sit next to me, I'm going to be here, right? I'm not holding it against you. Oh, you didn't want to sit next to me? No.
Right.
You didn't want to hug me? No, right?
There's not a scoreboard.
Correct, right? That is immaturity, to me at least. And so I think there's many things I've learned from our kiddos, but I learned love in itself is truly a selfless act, and it's easier said than done, right? We talk about love, but when we have to put love into action, it truly is can be difficult. So what about you? Putting it back on you.
Well, I asked the question, so I got a good answer.
Okay.
The most important thing that I learned is priority, or true priority. Before I had kids, I used to think certain things were a big deal. Oh, I can't handle it if this happens. Oh, I can't handle it if this happens. Oh, my job, my vehicle, all this. It's like, oh, it's so important to me. Well, I realize with kids, or what I've been taught by kids, is you can fire me, you can steal my car, you can do just about anything to me. If my kids are okay, I'm okay. Okay? If my kids are okay, I'm okay. There's nothing you can do to me that can really affect me too much, as long as my kids are okay. And it's interesting. Like when I think about planning in my life, like, oh, what are the things that I have to do at this time, at this time, at this time? I feel like, once the kids are out of the house, and once they're established in life, everything's just gravy. Like, once I get them on good footing, and once I get them out to where they can be self-sufficient, and to where they can go pursue their own happiness, then it doesn't matter what happens to me. I mean, now you might want to keep me around, but it's like, I feel like at that point, like I've pretty much done what I got to do.
Yeah, I agree. You had a second question.
Oh, my second question.
Maybe we drive while we do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
My second question is, what advice would you give to people who are thinking about having kids?
I think I was saying this to you last time. If you have you were saying there's never a good time or you're never ready to have children.
Right.
And to some degree, I may agree with that, but I also think if you have the privilege, right, to choose, person, time, and place, and like I said, that's a privilege, not everyone is able to do that, then do so.
Yeah.
Not that I chose the, exact time, but I think I chose to have children when I was ready to. And why that's important, I'm not just talking about finances, I'm talking about somewhat emotionally ready. And like I said, children are going to grow you still, right? But I was desiring, I lived my life a little bit, I, hung out and do all the things that, excuse me, young people may do. And I was at a point now where I was in the mindset of being settled, of wanting to take on motherhood. It came in a form that I wasn't expecting, but I was of the mindset where I was ready. And I think that's important just because some people have children, but they resent them.
You don't want that.
Right? And I think it's such an unfortunate thing, because I think every child should be wanted. But I think, unfortunately, some people resent their children. And I think it just ultimately ends up in that child not having the best, outcome.
So what's the advice?
So if you can choose, right, that's what I'm going back to say, person, time, and place, if you have the privilege to plan when you have a child, then do so. That's the advice.
Okay.
What about you?
I say you should have kids. It's very important.
And I was telling Charles, I disagree with that actually, right? I think children are life-changing. Do I think everyone should have a child? No. Some people just know it's not for them or they're not ready, and that is okay. Everyone's story, I think, looks different. Now, I think, like I said, I think children are amazing, but I disagree. I don't think it's a part of everyone's story. It doesn't have to be. Nothing is wrong, for those ladies who don't want children. I think sometimes society can frown, or you're this age and you haven't had children. That's okay. And it could be for multiple reasons. Maybe they're not ready. Maybe their body's not, able, fertility issues. I think that's quite fine.
Well, of course. Not everybody's able to have kids.
And even if you are able, it's okay if you don't want to have kids. There's nothing wrong with that.
There is nothing wrong with that. But I know that with me, I would have never by myself come to the conclusion I should have kids. It took somebody else sort of planting that seed for me to do it. And now I'm so glad I did it. Not everybody is me or like me.
Yeah, correct.
But I think that if you're on the fence, if you have the luxury of actually being able to sit around and pontificate about these things, then you should probably do it. That's my thought.
Okay. Well, with that modified,
we don't have to agree.
Yeah, I mean, I partially agree. I don't completely agree, and that is okay. But anyway, we've rambled long enough, you guys. Let us know down below, what are your thoughts about children? How have children changed you? And that's whether you're a mother, a father, an aunt, a godmother, a godfather, And as always, remember to like and subscribe down below. We'll talk to you guys later.